The BPO industry engaged in data-related work is now out of the ambit of OSP regulations. The Ministry of Communications announced the simplified guidelines for business process outsourcing and IT-enabled services players to reduce the compliance burden for the industry. OSPs are entities providing applications, IT-enabled or any kind of outsourcing services using telecom resources. The term refers to BPOs, KPOs, ITES and call centers among others. The new rules will create a friendly regime for work from home and work from anywhere while removing several reporting and other obligations for such companies. Now, it is aimed at providing a strong impetus to the industry and positioning India as one of the most competitive IT jurisdictions in the world. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the new rules for OSPs. Joining me on the program today are Sunil K. Gupta, Secretary TRI, TV Mohandas Pai, Chairman Manipal Global Education and former Director Infosys, and Ashish Agarwal, Senior Director and Head Public Policy, NASSCOM. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Sunil Gupta, I'd like to start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand and analyze, what OSPs are and why was there a need to change the rules?
So, this OSP regulations or registrations was considered long back. And at that point of time, there was a very different requirement on the networks. The possibility of misuse of the network was very high. The monitoring mechanisms available were limited, and a lot of development has taken place. You will recall earlier there has to be an excess deficit charge, and that happens to be quite high. So always there was a balancing required, whether some flexibility given to the OSPs will be misused by bypass of certain telecom and other things. And because of that, certain type of regulatory embargo was always kept there. But as we passed in the time frame, all these things are irrelevant at this point of time. And therefore, there was a requirement to review it drastically and see that flexibility is given to other service providers so that they can perform well. And we had to understand that the level of employment being provided by the OSPs and ITSPs is pretty high. The flexibility which is available to work anywhere from India or work from home are very common nowadays, and therefore any embargo putting certain conditions that you cannot work from home or anywhere in India is absolutely misnomer at this point of time. So as TRI, we examined all various issues which are having adverse impact on the OSP industry as a whole, what type of conducive environment has to be created for them, and how we can make an environment where OSPs can flourish and do a lot of business for India. That was our consideration. We have given our recommendations to government, and I'm happy that government has accepted our recommendations and a new OSP policy has been released.
Okay. Mohandas Pai, let me come across to you now. So, what does it really mean for OSPs as a whole and especially in India?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate the government and Prime Minister Modi for this remarkable step. This is a classical policy where government did not trust any citizen of this country, imposed unreasonable conditions, and all of us have suffered for very many years from the tyranny of the devotee. Now this is gone. It should have gone long back, but I'm very happy it's gone. What does it mean? It means very clearly that regulatory burden has come down tremendously, except for people possibly who run call centers. We don't have to go under the gaze of a regulator who never regulated in the first place. The bank guarantee system has gone. You can work from anywhere. You don't have to file any forms, don't have to do anything. You only have to go through an authorized telephone operator, and he will take care of everything. It is liberation. Now, everything is gone. All regulations have gone. Is a big burden that lifted from our shoulders, except for a small class of people who are operating call center globally. Some small regulatory requirement is there, which they have to file, which is very easy, not very difficult. But the biggest benefit is, after COVID, the world has realized that work from anywhere is the future now. Now, in the United States, because everybody is working from home, in Europe, everybody is working from home. India, everybody is working from home. This expands the industry. This means the industry which went to the Philippines, which went to other countries can come back here because all over the country people can work. Now small cities will boom. Why come to a Bangalore? Why come to a Mumbai? Why come to a Pune? Why can't you work in a small city? Why can't you work in a village from your home? Because if the telecoms infrastructure is very good, you can be anywhere, right? You can travel at a moment's notice to where you have to go. So I think this will create employment in smaller towns. It will create employment in villages. It will decongest our cities to some extent because the total people employed is about 445 lakh people. Even if 10 lakh people leave the big cities, go elsewhere, there will be a boom increase in consumption in smaller cities. This is what we're waiting for. I think it's fantastic what has happened. And this will reduce the regulatory burden and open up the industry all across India and make things much, much better and lower the cost of operations for everybody.
Absolutely. All right. So, Ashish Agarwal, let's talk about this aspect that Mr. Pai raised and take that forward now. Certainly several regulations have been done away with. So what does this mean for ease of doing business in India?
Oh, absolutely. It's a exponential reform, and I think Mr. Pai has summed that up very well. And given this, I think one of the things besides the ease of doing business in respect of compliance and filing and registration and bank guarantee, what it really means is that, see, India being the largest talent pool in IT services always had that advantage. Now, it's about really ability to call on that talent at will and scale up rapidly. Now, given that you can do only so much in Bangalore, so much in Gurgaon, and so much in Pune, and so on and so forth, what this does is that just in terms of remote working, it allows you to have employees out of Northeast. It allows you to have, for example, women working, wanting to work part-time to work from their home, and so on and so forth. So I think just in terms of leveraging talent on a pan-India basis, scaling up rapidly, that's something that's going to be possible. I mean, we are a $191 billion industry. About roughly 40 billion of that is BPM, and if we employ 4.4 million people, about that 2 million are just BPM employees. So if you look at this over the next 10 years as an industry, we are thinking our revenue should be $500 billion, which is not something a pie in the sky. It is achievable. So in that journey, there are certain milestones in terms of policy interventions where government can certainly help. So given the fact that the opportunity for us, while we are big and the leader in the world, is still very high. So just for example, currently about global 55% of the sourcing business is done by India. But on the other side, 40% of the global capability centers, these are large firms who are multi-country operations who have India as their hub for doing the back office. 40% of that industry is still not in India. So the opportunity is huge. So I think what this does is that it sets us on a kind of a way forward on all of this. And lastly, I think if you look at the fact that while the mature and larger IT enabled services companies are probably already there at some level, the next wave of startups on remote solutions, on tech solutions, which is going to happen, because see, when this OSP thing started, it was the BPO, the call center. Now India has moved into value added services where there is a lot of work which is not voice, which is just data. But the OSP terms and condition never had that clarity that who is covered and who is not covered. So by excluding all non-voice entirely from data, I think it's given a huge clarity to the industry.
Absolutely. All right. So Sunil Gupta, let's talk about another aspect now. Clearly, as mentioned by all of you, this is going to ensure that people can work from the comfort of their homes, stay back in their hometowns. Clearly, an impetus as far as tier 2 and tier 3 cities are concerned. But we also have to improve the infrastructure as a whole. If you're looking at connectivity from tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns, we have to ensure that they have the right kind of connectivity, the right kind of bandwidth, and all these other aspects that go along with it.
Yes, you are right, because bandwidth plays a very important role to make people work from home. So in this particular regard, we are also working with Ministry of Housing and Urban Development Affairs to ensure that big buildings and societies are given access where network or optical fiber can be provided and shared so that everybody can get a good speed of the internet and work from home. Number one. Number second, on technological front, we are working, we have recommended for licensing of the E-band and V-band, which can provide the virtual type of optical fiber in the air. which will also provide facility to provide or enhance the bandwidth required to the individuals. The optical fiber penetration is also being increased. We are working with different societies and government organizations to increase and give right of way so that telecom service providers can provide the access and lay the optical fiber to that extent. 5G is anyway across the corners, which will be able to give you fixed mobile access. And by that also we can give the quality of service required level to the consumer. So multiple works are being done simultaneously. We are very much aware about the need of high quality internet speed to the users will be using for the commercial purposes. And these guidelines will only have meaning when we can provide them good optical fiber connectivity or good internet access. And that is why TRAI is already working on those directions. And I am quite hopeful that the requirement of the industry will be well met.
Talking about the industry, Mohandas Pai, clearly there are a lot of advantages really as far as these new rules are concerned. But do you say that there are challenges as well, and challenges that need to be addressed in the short term? One of them that we've already raised and spoken about is, of course, connectivity. At some level, do you believe that the employers are going to be concerned about employees being complacent, working from their homes? Is that another aspect too? And do the employees and the employers also need a change in mindset? I mean, I'm asking these questions because to bring in another different aspect and an element into the discussion as well.
Well, 7 months of lock-in have changed everybody's mindset. I can't see any bigger change than that. Remember, even today, not more than 5-10% of people are coming to office. Only 5-10%. Out of the 45 lakh people, about 90 to 95 lakh people transitioned to work from home in less than 30 days. It never happened anywhere in the world. And remember, we were a tightly regulated economy. Minister R.S. Prasad and MeitY brought in the rule immediately. Everybody transitioned and started working. And you've seen the growth in the IT industry in the first quarter and the second quarter. So it's already happened. So mindset has changed. Employees have changed, and more employees will work from home because we don't see any employer having the full complement coming back to campus. Minimum 25, 30, 40% will always work from home, maybe by rotation. And many people have said they want to go to smaller cities. And many senior people have said they want to go back to their hometown, smaller cities. Now, the bigger impact has been senior people who are past 45, who are the major impediment for work from home, are all working from home, are enjoying it because they got large houses. They got their home offices. They don't have children in the home and they're enjoying it. They become more productive. Then they're asking the question, why were we not doing this earlier? Talk to the State Bank of India chairman who just retired, and he'll tell you that, we want people to work from everywhere. State Bank of India, 200-year-old institution, bankers who are very conservative. We want to work from everywhere. And he said, I enjoy working from home because they're very productive. Don't get stuck in traffic. The big issue, like you said and Mr. Sunil said, is about bandwidth. Now, here is where we need reforms in the telecom sector. Telecom sector is hugely burdened by, the tariffs, but burdened by the fares they pay the government. The taxes should be rationalized. I think TRI is working on it, has given a paper. Government must take an action. And second, they must use the Universal Service Obligation Fund, which has still got 50-60,000 crores. Spend the money in the next 1 or 2 years immediately to create bandwidth to all villages, all small towns. Out of about, I think, 300,000 small villages, 170,000 have got broadband. In the next 1 year, open it up, give all the villages small broadband and expand it. And that will change India. It's a part of the revolution that's happening under Digital India driven by a Prime Minister. And this COVID has demonstrated if Prime Minister Modi did not have the vision of Digital India 5 years ago, where would we be? Everything was shut down. How will we work? All across India, the great majority, yes, many people are left behind. There's a digital divide, but the great majority are able to do it because the hard work done by the government, by TRAI and everybody else. And this is fantastic. So next 1 year, go all out to give high quality bandwidth all across India so that employment will boom in the smaller towns, in everywhere else.
Absolutely. And we do not have to see urban crowding and jobs concentrated only in the urban sectors. India will grow uniformly all over the place, and that's really a benefit that we need to look forward to. All right, so a question that Mr. Pai himself asked, I'm going to ask that to you, Ashish Agarwal, and let's try and see if we can get an answer to that. Why weren't we doing this earlier? Why did we need a pandemic to come and show us that this is what we needed to do. What has the experience really been as far as, working from home in the past is concerned?
So it is all about the forced experiment of 6 months, which Mr. Pai said has led to the change in mindset. But to be honest, I think IT industry had been in forefront of whatever work from home was anyway there. So in that sense, we were a leader in that space, and that's why we were able to adapt to it so quickly. And obviously, there are some challenges. I mean, not everybody can encroach upon the family space without creating a work from home environment which is conducive to both work and family. So there are these challenges. But moving to the point of saying that what are the immediate challenges that we as NASSCOM are looking at in light of this. So one, if you have to fully leverage this OSP reform itself, you need to clarify in the special economic zones also on the work from home aspect. See, our rules and laws were never written with the perspective of work from home. So it does, the SEZ rules do provide for work from home, but it's in a very temporary context. So today, if I want to plan for, let's say, a longer term, the last thing I want is the SEZ authorities to say, okay, after 6 months, come back. That won't work. So how will I do that? So I think we need to do that. Similarly, we just have the new labor codes, and I really wish that the timing of the labor code coming in and this pandemic, it would have been in a more in a different sequence, because the labor codes, if you look at it, they have done so much in terms of bringing the simplification, perhaps, but they completely miss out in terms of thinking of remote working. So unless the labor laws are also aligned, you cannot really fully leverage the work from home thing. I mean, it's quite surprising to think that you needed permission from government and to give bank guarantee to be able to work from home. So with this reform, I think we have crossed a major hurdle, and now we should quickly follow it up with the other changes so that the industry's goal of $500 billion can actually be achieved in time, if not earlier.
Absolutely. All right. So since we are here then, Sunil Gupta, will this now propel the IT BPM industry, to progress to the next level of growth?
I have no doubt on that. It will definitely progress on that. Everything is ripe, as pointed out by my co-panelist here, that there was certain limitations with the regulatory framework where they were not allowed to work from home. If at all it has to be given bank guarantees on that. There was conditions if you want to share the internet bandwidth. So all these things have been simplified. And the very purpose of this simplification was that a boost should be given to the industry and a free hand should be given to the industry so that they can perform well. They have got knowledge, they have got capacity, they have got talent, and they have got everything on their hands now to perform well. And I have no doubt that they will be performing much better than we have expected.
Absolutely. All right. So Mohandas Pai, what does this mean for the economy at large? Let's not forget that the economy is opening up now. We've seen that, after a brief lull, it seems to be bouncing back as the nation opens up. So what does this mean and what kind of an economic impact is it going to have?
Well, the biggest challenge for India is to create jobs for the young people. Every year, 2.5 crore young people attain the age of 21. 90 lakh people graduate from our colleges every single year. 1.5 crore out of the 2.5 crore people need jobs. So all the focus should be on creating jobs for young people. The question to ask is, does this reform enable larger job creation, especially in the smaller cities and towns where there are lesser jobs? The answer is a resounding yes. Can this reform accelerate job creation? The answer is yes. Can this reform make industry more competitive? The answer is yes. Can this reform also make sure infrastructure will come up in the smaller town? The answer is yes. In the next 1 year, I think the growth of the BPO industry will go up because costs will come down. The cost of operating in smaller cities is less. You don't have to give a transport system. For example, you'll be very surprised. A very large part of the cost of a person in the BPO industry was transport. If you work in a night shift, every time you have to have a vehicle to pick them up and drop them back at home, it costs a lot of money. And in some cases, much more than what they got paid. Then you put them in a campus. Then you got to provide all the facilities. You don't have to do so much. And for the employee, it's easier to work from home, right? You can pay them a work from home allowance. Give them an allowance for power. Give them an allowance for the bandwidth. Bandwidth costs are very low in the country, and do that. Once industry understands all this, they will get more business, they will be competitive, and they'll have more surpluses, and they'll pay the employees better. So I foresee a higher pay for employees in future if they work from home with special allowances. So I think it's a big, big plus, and more jobs will be created in the next 1 year. You will see a boom.
Absolutely. All right. So, Ashish Agarwal, is there scope for more changes in the near future? What more needs to be done going forward?
Absolutely. I think this reform has really done a parametric or exponential change in terms of how the policy landscape looks. I think we have the union budget coming up. We understand that the government has its hands tied in terms of what it can do. So what we are doing is that we are not asking for fiscal reliefs. What we are really looking at is the ease of doing business. I mean, there are pressing issues in GST where industry is willy-nilly caught in this aggressive interpretation that they are intermediaries, and which really means that the entire export is potentially liable to an 18% tax. And there are these very reputed companies which have gone into litigation on all of this. So I think there are battles ahead of us which government can potentially solve without having any fiscal cost to them in some sense. And like I mentioned earlier, we are looking at the SEZ clarifications and really the labor reform. So I think what has happened after this is that even when we are talking to the government, they are really pushing us also to work hard on these reforms, and we do see some of this coming together. So this is really setting up the industry for success. And not to forget, on the point of economy, since we are largely an export-led economy, I think we also offset a lot of the import in terms of the balancing of the budget. So I think it's a great win for the nation.
All right, it's time now to get closing comments from all my panelists with the best way forward, starting first with you, Sunil Gupta.
Yeah, in short, I can say it's a very good move by the government, and it will definitely help everyone in the sector, be it entrepreneurs, be it individuals, be it the job creation, be it the telecom service providers, because they will also get a lot of more because of the more consumption of bandwidth. So it's a very good move forward. Certain issues are there which needs to be tackled in the time-bound manner, and that will give further boost to the industry.
Absolutely. Mr. Pai.
Well, I think let us also congratulate TRI for this fantastic reform. All through, TRI has been reform-minded. If you read all their papers, they've always stood for reforms, opening up the economy, etc. They supported everybody. Congratulations to them and thank them. Well, like Ashish said, two things. Make sure the new labor laws, the new code that's going to come next year is aligned with this work from home. Very important. We should not be stuck between two departments. And the SEZ issue. Well, 30 to 40% of BPO software export in the SEZ. Allow people who work in the SEZ to go work from home because the regulations have to be changed. Now they've been eased. I will request R.S. Prasad, Minister Prasad, to have a look at that. If these two things are done, I think a great majority of the thing can be easily done. Because like I said earlier, India's focus 100% should be create jobs, create jobs, create jobs. And, remove any regulatory barrier that does not create jobs or hurt jobs. And this does that extremely well. So a very great day.
And Ashish Agarwal, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
So I think government has got 100 out of 100 on this reform, and credit must go to TRAI. Credit must go to the Ministry of IT and Electronics. It must definitely go to the Department of Telecom, and finally the PMO. So for a public policy professional to see all the government departments working in harmony and in quick speed and delivering this kind of a reform, I think it's a great thing to happen. And if this can continue, then I'm sure we are set for long-term success. Thank you.
All right. On that note, then I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that there was a need